Welcome back to the Quarterly Call. All content is for informational purposes and is not investment advice. Please consult with an investment professional. All right, so Block's latest earnings report just dropped.
Yeah, lots to unpack here. Always interesting to see what they're up to.
Definitely, and I think their 2024 performance really sets the stage. Both Square and Cash App saw some pretty significant jumps in gross profit,
For sure, 15% for Square.
and a full 21% for Cash App.
Shows they're resonating with users, no question.
And not just attracting new users, but keeping the ones they have.
Right, because both platforms actually held on to over 100% of their gross profits from the year before.
That's some serious customer loyalty right there.
Yeah.
Now, beyond the solid performance, there were a couple of things that really jumped out at me as signs of acceleration.
Oh, yeah, like what?
Well, Square's gross payment volume, for one,
Right?
shot up by 10% year over year in Q4.
Yeah, healthy rebound in sales.
Exactly. And then Cash App saw a huge surge in users who were directly depositing their paychecks.
Makes sense. They hit 2.5 million by December.
Up 25% from last year?
Definitely a signal that Cash App is becoming more central to people's financial lives. It's not just for those quick peer-to-peer payments anymore.
Right, more of a full-fledged money management tool. Now let's get to the really interesting stuff. Block's vision for the future. Dorsey highlighted 3 key areas:
Made on me.
connecting local communities, going all in on AI automation, and of course their ongoing support for Bitcoin.
So like a three-pronged approach.
Exactly. This neighborhood network strategy, for instance,
Intriguing.
aims to create these closer connections between Square sellers and Cash App users. The idea is to use that existing user base on both sides, businesses and consumers.
To build a more unified experience. Yeah, I see where they're going with this.
It's definitely unique, that's for sure. And then there's their push into AI.
Beyond just, simple chatbots.
Oh yeah, they're developing some pretty sophisticated AI tools in-house.
Like what?
They mentioned one called Goose. It's an AI assistant specifically designed for engineers,
Interesting.
and it's already attracting attention from developers outside of Block.
So they're kind of positioning themselves at the forefront of AI innovation, at least within the financial services industry.
Exactly. And then, of course, there's Bitcoin. They're building Proto, which is an open-source Bitcoin mining system.
Open source, huh?
Yep. They're aiming for more customizable solutions.
Seems like they're trying to push the boundaries of what's possible with Bitcoin mining.
And they're making it open source to encourage wider adoption, maybe even disrupt the market a bit.
Makes sense. They've always been big proponents of Bitcoin. So all of this sounds pretty ambitious, but what does it actually mean for Block's bottom line in 2025?
Well, they're projecting at least 15% year-over-year growth in gross profit.
That's pretty substantial.
They're aiming for at least $10.22 billion.
Wow. And they're expecting the first quarter to be their slowest growth period.
Right, but they're anticipating things to pick up significantly as they roll out new products and fine-tune their go-to-market strategies.
Makes sense, front-loading the year with development and then hitting the gas later on.
Exactly. Cash App, in particular, is expected to drive a lot of that growth.
How so?
Well, they're planning to expand access to Cash App Borrow and increase lending limits.
Okay, interesting. So they're leaning more into the lending side of things.
And they're integrating Afterpay into the Cash App card, giving users more flexibility and control over their spending.
So weaving those two products together more tightly. Makes sense.
Right. And then you've got Square. They're aiming to increase their GPV and gross profit through more aggressive marketing.
Okay, more visibility.
And they're expanding their sales team and forming strategic partnerships.
So a multifaceted approach to growth.
Exactly. They're also making some key platform enhancements to streamline the user experience and onboard new sellers more quickly.
So optimizing the platform itself.
All with the aim of keeping existing merchants happy and attracting new ones.
Sounds like they've got a lot on their plate, but they're taking a pretty comprehensive approach.
They are. Now, all of this growth is great, but investors are always going to want to know, what about profitability?
Yeah, you can't just grow for the sake of growth.
Right. Well, Block's goal is to achieve a Rule of 40 run rate by the end of 2025.
Now, for anyone who isn't familiar with that metric, Rule of 40 basically combines gross profit growth with adjusted operating income margin.
So it's a way of measuring how well a company is balancing growth and profitability.
Exactly. And it's a pretty important indicator for investors, especially in the tech world.
And Block's commitment to hitting that target is evident in their disciplined approach to spending.
Like how?
Well, they're being very careful about increasing employee headcount even as they ramp up spending on acquisitions.
Right, making sure every dollar counts.
Exactly. It shows they're not just chasing growth at all costs, but are committed to building a sustainable and profitable business for the long haul.
And that's a message that's likely to resonate with investors. It shows that they're thinking long term, balancing those ambitions with a focus on the bottom line.
So let's shift gears for a moment and talk about you. You're listening to all this and probably wondering how it all connects back. Like, why should anyone care about what Block's cooking up for 2025 and beyond?
It's a valid question, right? Why should we care? Well, I think the takeaway here is that Block is placing some pretty significant bets on innovation in areas that could really reshape how we experience things like local commerce and even how we manage our money day to day.
And it's not just about those individual products or services. It's about how they all connect to form a larger ecosystem.
Exactly. Like their neighborhood network strategy, for example, that has the potential to blur the lines between our online and offline interactions, creating a more seamless experience. And then you've got those AI tools like Goose, which could revolutionize software development, not just within Block, but potentially across entire industries.
And we can't forget about their venture into Bitcoin mining with Proto. That could really shake things up in the market. So, yeah, I think it's safe to say that Block is positioning itself to be a major player in the future of finance and technology. We'll like to keep an eye on, that's for sure.
Absolutely. They're definitely a company to watch. Now, taking a step back and looking at everything we've discussed today, what stood out to you as the most significant takeaway from this whole earnings call? Was it their financial performance, their forward-looking approach to those new technologies, or maybe that commitment to achieving the Rule of 40?
Hmm, that's a tough one. I think for me, it's the combination of all those things. They're not just content with their current success. They're pushing boundaries and experimenting, but they're doing it in a way that feels both ambitious and, pragmatic.
I agree. They seem to have a good grasp on balancing that move fast and break things Silicon Valley mentality with a very strong focus on profitability and building a sustainable business.
It makes you wonder what their next big move will be. They've got this neighborhood network idea, they're developing some very advanced AI, and they're diving headfirst into Bitcoin mining.
It's a lot to process, but I think the key takeaway here is this. Block is not just reacting to the changes happening in the market. They're actively shaping the future of finance and technology. It's a pretty bold vision.
And how well they're able to balance those bold moves with a real commitment to sustainable profitability will likely determine their long-term success. They're definitely walking a tightrope, but so far, they seem to be managing it pretty well.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's that commitment to sustainable growth that really makes them an interesting company to follow. They're pushing boundaries, taking risks, and they're not afraid to experiment. That's pretty rare in the corporate world, especially in finance. It'll be interesting to see what they come up with next.
Well, on that note, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We've explored their performance, their vision for the future, and their overall strategy for achieving sustainable growth. It's clear they're a company on the move, and their journey is definitely going to be one worth following closely.
I couldn't agree more. There's always more to learn. Staying informed is really the best way to stay ahead of the curve, especially in a world that's evolving as rapidly as ours. It really highlights the vision they have, right? Like building this truly connected ecosystem that bridges the gap between consumers and businesses. It's pretty remarkable.
And it's all about finding those innovative ways to integrate their products and services. Think about how they're weaving Afterpay into the Cash App card.
Right, giving users more purchasing power and control, it's a smart move.
Absolutely, it has the potential to change how people approach their everyday spending. And then you've got Goose, that AI assistant for engineers, which could have huge implications.
Yeah, if that takes off, it could really revolutionize software development, not just for Block, but across the board.
It's like they're not just adapting to the changes in the market, they're actively shaping the future.
Exactly. And they're doing it in a way that's both ambitious and, grounded in reality.
It makes you wonder what their next move will be. They've got this neighborhood network concept, they're developing cutting-edge AI, and they're diving headfirst into Bitcoin mining. It's a lot to keep track of.
Well, that's what makes it so exciting, right? They're constantly innovating and pushing boundaries. It's a company that's definitely worth keeping an eye on.
Absolutely. Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We've explored Block's impressive performance, their ambitious vision for the future, and their commitment to achieving sustainable growth. It's safe to say they're a company on the move, and their journey is definitely one worth following.
I couldn't agree more. There's always something new to learn in this space, and staying informed is the best way to keep up with this rapidly evolving world of finance and technology.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Quarterly Call. For more episodes, please remember to rate and follow our show. Until next time, stay curious and stay informed.